thank you, Destiny. That was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
And you know what? I went to Mills College. A young girl was doing her final on the heart. I got to touch a golden heart, but I also kept telling her about you. And her teacher said, "Oh no, yeah, she's been listening to Destiny Muhammad the whole time." Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming out, you know, because we know in the Bay Area there's 10 million places you can be, and I'm always appreciative when people show up at the thing that we're doing, so thank you so much. I'm going to also invite you, and I know people never do it even when you invite them to come in closer, so it's a little bit more intimate. It's, you know, I'm not the creative person here, but it's hard to resonate with empty chairs. So if you can, coming in, I think will really give us all a boost up here. And I want to be quick so that we can get on with it, but I do want to say on a personal level, this is really, really special to me. This is special to me for a couple of reasons. One, my friend here, Thurman, T. Watts, asked me to join a writer's group. Now, you know, maybe that doesn't seem like it's a big thing, but I'm dyslexic, and I have run away from writing like my whole life. But we'll see. He invited me, and so I listened to myself say, yeah, and I thought, girl, you are way off. But anyway, I did that, and it was a very intimate group. I think about a couple of people are missing. And I learned kind of to give it up and not be so in my head and in myself about stuff like that. But I also got to witness the beginnings of many of the stories in here, and so I'm so delighted to be at the table with them as they introduce and do this book release. So first of all, I just want to say congratulations for having the courage to put it out there and then putting it out so well and tying it together in such a lovely book. So congratulations to you. So as if bearing your soul on paper isn't enough, we're going to ask them to bear it again here. And we'll go through a process, and at the end, hopefully, you'll have some questions to ask as individuals, but also as a group. What I'd like to do is have each person, we'll just go down the line, we'll have each person do a brief introduction of themselves. That kind of lets us know how they got to the moment of sitting at this table and writing in this book. So they'll do a brief introduction of themselves and maybe read a couple of paragraphs so that you, those of you who haven't had an opportunity to read the book, and you can buy one today, but if you haven't had that opportunity, you'll, you know, as they're talking, as you're coming up with questions, you'll have a framework for that. So let us start with you guys, as you're introducing, I'm talking to my panel right now. Even Jackie. How about that? As you introduce yourselves, I also want you to share with us what it felt like once you saw the finished book, right? You know, if there's a moment in that, share that moment with us. So I'm going to start here with Mr. T. Watts, Thurman Watts.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for that gracious introduction. Thank everybody for coming. It truly has been a labor of love, the best of the Scribes of Heru, Volume 1. Everybody who started out in the group didn't make the complete journey, but Harry Heru Hall transitioned. He just dropped out of here.
Tell him who he is.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you who Harry Hall was. Harry, first of all, Harry's, you got to go back in his family history. His uncle was Charles Sullivan, the first lessee of the Fillmore and Winterland, who was an associate, friend, if you will, of Bill Graham, who at that time was the lowly manager of the San Francisco Mime Troupe, not making much money. Charles Sullivan was giving rock and roll, R&B I should say, dances for black teenagers at Winterland and the Fillmore Auditorium, and Bill Graham noticed how much money Charles Sullivan was making doing that, so he was always trying to usurp, if you will, the lease from his friend Charles Sullivan. So, fast forward. I always get the year confused. It was either 64 or 65. Charles Sullivan was the biggest black music promoter on the West Coast. The Rolling Stones management attempted to hire him as tour manager for the Rolling Stones' first American tour. But the weekend that he was murdered, which prevented him from getting that job, Charles Sullivan had James Brown in Seaside and the Temptations in LA. Sunday night, I can't remember the date. He flew to LA to get his Temptations money, flew back to San Francisco to pick up his car, drove to Oakland to see his girlfriend, you understand, and left his girlfriend's house, allegedly headed to Seaside to pick up his James Brown money, but his body was found south of Market with a pistol near his hand, and the police said it was suicide, but the coroner said it was death by the hands of another. And then magically, Bill Graham had both leases. So Harry Heru Hall was researching that story and was writing that story in our writers group when he dropped dead in 2020. Right about the time we were contemplating changing the name from the no-name writers group to something else. And in honor of Harry Heru Hall, we named the writers group the Scribes of Heru. So may he rest in peace. I was talking to his wife recently, and she still has those files, and maybe that story will finally get out and say, hey, good story. Now, they say I'm the editor of this. Truly, I'm not the best editor sitting at this table. There's at least one more better than me, and that would be Joyce Gordon. She will tell you her story in a moment. But the primary motivating factor of me doing this project is a 50-year-old cold case murder that I fictionalized in this book. I'm going to read you a few paragraphs right now, and hopefully you'll be intrigued. And I'm going to introduce.
Don't forget to tell me.
Yeah. In real life, I was at the center of a terrible and horrific murder that occurred 50 years ago. The victim was a brilliant young African-American student who was enrolled at the Stanford School of Law. We were introduced by individuals who have since faded into oblivion or death, but suffice it to say that the first date was a blind one, and the next thing I knew, she was declaring to her mother in Bakersfield that we were engaged to be married. I did not know how to disagree with that declaration, so I let it stand. 2 days before she was killed, for no explicable reason, she had me removed from the apartment we shared. She told the cops who facilitated my removal that she had asked me to leave, but that was not true. 50 years later, and this was written in 2023, 50 years later, the case has been reopened for the third time, apparently through at least the early 2023. One of her killers still worked in a highly visible, tenured position at an HBCU. The murder that occurred on October 22nd, 1973 remains officially unsolved. So it's not to tip the scales of justice further south or taint the investigation any further. We shall not reveal real names at this time, But rest assured that the government knows who did it, as do local and federal law enforcement and the cartel that runs the university. That said, I present to you 2 semi-fictional takes on a true story. So you'll have to read it to get the rest. When we came together as a unit to do this, I had visualized just such a thing. Not necessarily the way it is, but just how good the potential was for this project. So once it was published, it was like, and Alan, I think he redid the cover like 6 times in 10 days.
Wow.
Really? Seriously. This brother can paint. Just everything came together nicely. And we just appreciate you being here and hope that you'll enjoy it. Thank you. And let me introduce this brother right here. Brother Ricky Vincent. Dr. Ricky Vincent.
All right.
Yeah. Author of The History of Funk and Party Music. He's the only person on this panel that has been published by a traditional major publisher. Everybody else is, we're some haphazard type people because it's a haphazard industry that doesn't allow black writers and artists to be reflected on the scale that we should be. So anyway, he conquered that mountain, and he wrote a great thing in here, which I'll let him describe. Thanks for coming again.
Thank you, Brother T. Watts. And I want to thank Cheryl Fabio for making this happen. The way she glues everything in Oakland together. So, and I just want to say I'm honored to be a part of this project with so many talented people that are making things happen. As a writer, you say I've published before. Let me just frame it as I won the lottery ticket twice. That's how I published. It's that random. You wash it all out. But I had some experience, but I did not have experience working with T. Watts. And this project was already in motion. We've talked about how it was already going. And so I stepped into something that was already going full speed ahead. And so I was like, well, let me whip something out, something together so that I could kind of keep up with these folks. Because they made every meeting happen, everything was just going. And so I felt thrilled to be a part of something that was doing things that needed to happen. And I noticed that right away. I noticed that when Cheryl was in the loop, and I noticed that when Ishmael Reed signed on board and recognized how significant it is for our stories to be told. And so if you know my background, I do write a lot about the music. And one thing I'm doing, I guess I'll slip it out here for a book number 3, is looking into where we are after the Great Migration. We're a couple generations past that, and we're into the sort of the B-side, the Great Diffusion. It's hard to explain what it is, but we're living it. So part of that is where do we go after we make it to the West Coast, and what happens next, and people, they go places, they scatter, they go to the inner space and kind of disappear. A lot of things happen. So I'm trying to make sense of that. And so for a selection for this project, I leaned on an experience I had with one of my musical heroes. His name is Bernie Worrell. He's a keyboardist for George Clinton in the 70s. He doesn't want to be recognized that way because he did so many things before and after, but he was the navigator on the mothership. He had sort of moved on from the East Coast life that he had. He was from New Jersey, and sadly, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer in 2015. He had just moved to the Pacific Northwest, and then he was diagnosed, and so he was on a clock, if you will. And he passed away in the spring of 2016, and most of his people, his fans, his followers, they had given him a big ceremony in New York City in April of that year. But Bernie Worrell had been working with this tribe of this First Nations tribe of people from Alaska, and he was living in Bellingham, Washington, which is maybe 10 minutes from Canada border. And he had just sort of moved to the other end of the country and the other end of the world. And musically, he was moving on beyond where most of us think of going musically. And Bernie was so skilled, he could travel there. And so I was always just excited to know him and follow him. And when he passed, I thought I would follow him one last time as they had the First Nation ceremony for him up there on the coast of upstate Washington. So I'm just going to read a little bit of Bernie Worrell's Final Flight. The First Nations ceremonial leader told the small gathering on the waterfront at the edge of the Puget Sound, he's a baby again.
Take your time.
And we need to.
This truly is, it's hard work. It's hard work.
He's a baby again. We need to wrap him up and protect him and send him on his way to his next life. The group had gathered on the shores of Bellingham Bay to pay respects to the musical giant George Bernard Worrell, the Wizard of Woo, keyboardist and visionary that had passed away earlier that summer at the age of 72. Bernie Worrell was a musical institution, a genre all his own. As keyboardist for George Clinton's Parliament Funkadelic in the 1970s, he defined the sound of P-Funk and was the navigator on the mothership. In the 1980s, his contributions elevated the Talking Heads to superstardom, and in the 90s and 00s, he collaborated with everyone from the Pretenders to Pharoah Sanders. Styles meant little to the man with perfect pitch, who simply played in the key of music. So there's more.
Wow.
I want to pass this to Brother Alan Lee.
Before you do, when you saw the book, what was your reaction?
I was stunned when I saw the book in its completed form, because the motion, everyone accelerated the process so quickly. That Joyce editing that happened, so I was like, well, here's my latest, there's your version. So what about the cover? There's the cover. And he's like, well, we're gonna be publishing in 2 weeks. And I'm like, what do you mean? These are colored people, it'll be 2 years before it comes out. That's what I was thinking, so it came at me like a bucket of water over my head. I was like, wow, this is all in place, it's all gonna happen. And I just want to congratulate this brother for moving things and making it all happen. So
Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Alan Laird, and I'm a native of Oakland, California, and For about 9 years, I had an art gallery in Oakland called Expressions Art Gallery, an outreach ministry. And we did outreach to our community, you know, to each neighborhood, to everyone. If you're homeless, if you're a senior that was shut in a transit hotel, it didn't make a difference because we created a space where all people were all people. And I left here and for some reason thought I was a teenager and volunteered for AmeriCorps Vista for the county, Miami-Dade County in Florida. And I just sold everything and gave things away and left for that journey. And I worked years with the homeless and prison systems. But I had been working with prison systems around the country anyway, and federal prisons and death row and what have you. But I see all these things come together, how important each one of us are. We are all dewdrops, and we all are carrying treasure. And that's what excites me, to see that we can get things done if we want to. We put our hearts to it. And if we encourage one another, you know, that missing element of love. I remember Oakland when it had a lot of love overflowing. When there was a lot of hope overflowing. It wasn't concrete and steel dividers. It was about being together. And we seemed to enjoy our togetherness. We didn't have all the violence against each other. And we had, it was a season. I hope that season returns again, because we deserve to have good life and to have positive energy and to be connected family to family, friends to friends. But I'm not going to go into all that. But yeah, and so I was so excited about being invited to participate in this wonderful group. It was so divinely organic. I took a part of Thurman's, one of his phrases, the divinely feminine. Yeah. So to see these things come together, and we all create, and I have a few of my prints that I brought down because I never show it. It's very expensive to ship your paintings and things, and I could never really do a show it. I mean, I could if I get funded. So I brought some pieces out for people if they want one or whatever. I just dropped the prices down, but it just wants to give a gift to Oakland and to Joyce Gordon Gallery, who has been for over 21 years, 22 years. Joyce Gordon Gallery, who is part of the membrane of this community. Joyce Gordon Gallery, which always has that open door, and you walk in and you're greeted with a lot of joy. I just really appreciate her opening her doors, and Eric and Gavin, who helped us today setting up, and Destiny and Chriswell and everyone who's here, and especially you all that showed up. And I'm going to just read a little excerpt. I wrote a book before this. It was called Yesterday's Sunset, Tomorrow's Sunrise, and it was about a black family evolving from slavery through Reconstruction up through the Spanish-American War and World War I. This is a book that I worked on, a segment from a book that I worked on for about 5 or 6 years researching, and it talks about a saga of a young man coming up in the South in the 1930s, and getting involved with life changes, and he moves on to Chicago, and they do part of the Toba tours around the country. There are a lot of things happening in that book. But I want to read an excerpt, and this is in the beginning as a child. Take these glasses. Remembering back into my childhood, when the sun always seemed to shine upon little boys' dreams of adventure. Back to that early June morning of 1926 in Baltimore, Maryland, as my mother and father, dressed in their traveling clothes, bounced along the cobblestone streets in our 1922 Ford. I sat with my face poking out through my rear seat, open window, pretending my eyes were a Codex box camera, capturing streams of row houses adorned with colored people gathering at various stoops. As we drew near to the harbor, the air became filled with the exotic spices of the McCormick Spice Factory, which laboring tugboats tooted their morning song. We were making our annual journey to Big Mama's in Georgia, whose red clay roads always welcomed us back home again. Home of family, born from the shattered pieces of our ancestry, which were stolen from Mother Africa and sewn into the endless quilt of our plantation slave system. I remember all those stories of my great-grandpapa and mama would tell me of those days of slavery. I remember my favorite story, how the buzzard got bald. I could hear it over and over again, because in the oral tradition, how the buzzard got bald was like an Aesop fable, passed down through generations. And my father would tell the story using his animated face and an old country dialect to imitate each character, like Brother Buzzard, who spoke with a deep southern drawl, and Brother Rabbit, who spoke fast with a high voice. Papa would announce telling of the story, which began with him imitating blowing a tin horn. Doodle 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 doodle. And the rooster blew the horn, toodle doodle 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 doodle, causing me to sit up in my seat because I knew the story was getting ready to start again. Awaiting Papa to begin the story. Papa turned away from his steering wheel to look back and smile while Mama flipped through the Green Book, a guide for colored travelers. Pushing his hat back on his head, he turned to me and asked, "Are you ready, Junior?" And I began flapping my arms like a great bird while exclaiming, "Yes, yes, and double yes." This whole happening, for me, is a divine happening to me. I mean, it's something that's beyond human power. And I believe that there is powers that love us more than we could ever know. That we are all children scrambling around doing different things like children do. You know, breaking windows and all these things. But God, I say Mama and Papa God, loves us so much. You know how little kids will mess up stuff, but you say, okay. Little kids will do something that seems so terrible. But Mama and Papa God say, it's all right. It's all right because I love you. I love you. You don't listen to all those people down there preaching hate and stuff. They know the size of my shoes, our shoes, and they haven't even met us. They don't even use our proper name. We didn't give a name that you could pronounce in the first place in all the historical texts that's left behind in history. But this book was like sacred medicine. And I got to be a thread entwining with other threads to make a whole. And I said, how amazing it is that we have that talent in us, all of us, to do that. You know, we came stolen from a land and divested of all knowledge, all history, and brought into a place foreign, and take that and make it positive and grow things and invent things and still get knocked on our asses. Even all the wars, we always had to fight the enemy in front and the racist enemy in the back. In World War I, the enemy in the front and the racism in the back. In World War II, same thing. Korean War, same thing. Vietnam War, same thing. It's something that we got to awaken to, that we have power so much that we can weave together and we can do anything. We've got the power. We don't have to buy, and we don't have to subject ourselves to abuse. We've been abused for generations, for hundreds of years. Abuse behind ignorance. But I don't know why I'm going there. Anyway, yeah, my first impression of the book was it was amazing and talented, and everyone brought all this treasure in, and we came together at the pot, you know, and I kept wiping the stove off, and Thurman had me doing that, everybody. So we was cooking in the kitchen, and we came up with a nice meal, I think. I'm so proud of it. And here sat next to me with all the spiritual vibrations is Brother Dave.
Hello.
He's got a lot to give.
Hello. Oh,
He got a microphone.
yeah.
Huh?
Okay. Well, when I found out about the workings of the book, I knew that it was going to come out okay. You know,
David,
if I couldn't do anything else.
tell us your name too.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is David Rages. And but I knew one thing was that there was not going to be any interference in putting this together.
Yeah.
And I knew that Thurman was very serious about it, because we had worked on a project way back when we were in college, and we were able to put out a booklet then with some poetry in it. And I knew that Joyce definitely was going to do it, because whatever she starts doing, she don't stop until she finishes. I don't have any problem with that. And I have a couple of things I'm going to read. The first one is about the love of my life. And I wonder who that could be. Let me take off this. Okay. The title is called JJ. Blue-green stones sparkling in a windless sunlight, reflecting through a mountain stream. Noondays, liquid eyes, holding their beholder in a void between morning and afternoon. On a blue-green sea, a sea goddess, summer daughter of Neptune, undulates in a boat made of sky, radiating rhythms, ripples, and splashing melodies. I saw her energy, felt it spread through the water, setting it on fire, later cooling it with moonlight rain. The next poem is called Coming Home, for Harry Hall. I last saw you in a Zoom stream. I was enlightened by your prose. Your message was smooth, diggable, and anointed with peace. The beginnings of a novel, you said. Wish there were more, wish there were more. Without effort, you navigated uncharted rapids and rested in Eddie's lap. As you journeyed to places unknown, no one knew you were coming home. Your words, kind, pacifying, overflowing with warmth, froze us to silence and icicle tears. I hope to hear more. I had hoped to hear more. In a straight line derecho, no time to look back, you took off and was gone. The door offered no resistance, but you broke on through to the other side. Good trouble, good trouble. Means leaves fall and transform so that trees may grow. Traveling on a seed in the window, in a wind, you sowed the new and the ancient, and they became one. What you talking about, Harry? Okay, now I understand. You've been here before. Will you come this way again, Reuben? Thank you. This is Joyce.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
What was your impression when you saw your book?
My impression, well, I was very enlightened by it, and I just thought to myself, I hear, we've been able to do something, but it felt different. I said, this is going to go somewhere. It's not just going to sit here. It's going to go somewhere because all these people are moving. They're not staying still either. So I was very, very proud of it and proud to see what can be accomplished, but it also told me what more that we can accomplish and how we can accomplish more by encouraging other people to do more, to show in our words and actions that we believe in them. And that goes a long way. Just the fact that someone believes in you, that can just really, hype you up and get you going, And I'm just glad that to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just
Hello,
point it
everyone. I
toward
just
you.
want to say thank you for coming, and thank you everyone who participated and helped us with this wonderful afternoon. I'm Joyce Regis, and I will start by answering the question. I actually felt that warm, fuzzy feeling that you feel when you have just done something like create something new, like giving birth, or like that. I just felt wonderful. So, I joined the group when Thurman mentioned it. Actually called and asked us to join the group or form the group. I said, I'm retired now. This is what I want to do next. So what else is there to do during the pandemic? We can meet on Zoom and, just what else is there to do? We're home all the time. Let's do this. So I wanted to improve my writing skills and my editing skills because as a librarian, you produce a lot of words and your staff produce a lot of words, so you do a lot of editing. So I realized that I might be a better editor than I am a writer. So I wanted to delve into both of those areas to improve my skills. And my stories are definitely family oriented. I'm going to read from one called Wrapped in Love. Like my mother and her mother and her mother before her, I made quilts. My mother Clara made quilts and her mother Neely made quilts. And though I cannot prove it, I just know that Neely's mother Minnie made quilts and Minnie's mother Mahaley made quilts too. The mothers in my family made quilts using scraps of cloth cut from old clothes and flour sacks to keep their families warm during the cold Oklahoma winters. They made quilts from traditional designs passed down and around their circles with descriptive names like nine patch, pinwheel, monkey wrench, flying geese, and log cabin, often making them without the benefit of written patterns like we do today. Quilting, like most housekeeping tasks, is a solitary activity. However, women also gathered at quilting bees where they met and worked on their own quilts or group projects for needy families or causes, such as newlywed bride. These were occasions to share patterns, techniques, fabrics, recipes, and to gossip. I would love to have been a fly on the wall at such a gathering of quilters in my family history. Mom and her sisters shared many quilting memories in the front room of their 4-room farmhouse while growing up. Just as other tasks that needed to run the household, such as cooking, cleaning, sewing, and canning, Neely put her daughters to work at quilting time. My Aunt Hazel hated those days when Mama kept her home from school to help make quilts. This is what she remembered of quilting with her mothers and sisters. I didn't like missing school, but Mama needed us to help. She had us cut out the pattern using pieces of newspaper and the shape she needed. She sewed the pieces together by hand with a needle and thread. In those days, flour came in sacks made of pretty material. Mama used the flour sack material to make our clothes, including our underwear. And when we grew out of those clothes, she used the scraps along with new flour sacks she had to make quilts. I remember being able to point out the fabric for my favorite dresses in quilts that lasted long after I grew up and left home. She made breeches quilts for the boys from the scraps of their old pants and shirts that didn't have holes in them. Those were some warm bed covers. That's a sample of what I wrote. So this is Jacqueline Elizabeth, and I have to tell you a little bit about Jacqueline and me, our relationship. Jacqueline is my cousin, and but it's unusual to say that. It's unusual for me to say that because I never knew Jacqueline until the pandemic. As someone mentioned before about the Great Migration, our family migrated from Oklahoma to California, and the result of that was, I would say, a change in the family structure for Black people, because as a result, this is my father's brother's daughter, and grew up in the same area, but we didn't know each other. So, but this is Jacqueline. Now that we know each other, we ride together. We ride.
Ooh, I need to answer the question.
Okay.
Ooh, so when I first saw it, I could not believe it. I'm gonna get a little choked up because I'm like,
It's okay. You know, I do want to, while she's pulling together, they did this on Zoom. They did this on Zoom during the time when, actually, just on a personal note, we were isolated. I didn't even know I was isolated.
right.
But I looked forward to those Sunday night Zoom things because not only did you get to connect with people, but in a deep way.
Yeah.
So I get it, Jackie.
Yeah, I just know that, thank you. And I'm not a crier, I do. But I just know that I had been, when I saw this, when I joined the group, I had never met, this is the first time I met Joyce face to face. First time ever. But I already knew that we were, going to be, connected. I'll be back. But it made me feel like, dang, I did something. My mother passed away in 2011. And she said she wanted me to finish so she can read it. But that didn't happen, but whatever I was writing wasn't this. It was the blueprint to this. But her passing gave me the okay to write this. To write what I put in here. What I have, my entries in here are 3 of the characters from my upcoming book called The Delicate Vessel, based on a story about a young lady named Diamond that bloomed. And I also entered a poem that I'm going to read. I'm going to read a paragraph about Diamond which is the introduction, and then I'm going to just read the short poem. But to know that I had been in the pool saying, I was running in the water saying, I am a published author, I am a world-renowned author, and then here it is. But to be connected to such great wisdom, it just spoke to the affirmations I had been saying. I always have what I need. I absolutely always have what I need. And to be part of a collective like such, man, I was able to get it all. I was able to get the wisdom and the constructive criticism, the love, and hey, you got any more? Or hey, did you do this? I mean, and I felt like I was at home. When the student is ready, the teacher will absolutely appear. You cannot microwave legacy, and to be here means that I'm a part of a legacy. Everybody here is a part of a legacy, and then we started something that is, the beginning and never the end of a legacy. And so I thought, you cannot microwave legacy, and here it is. That's what I thought. I'm gonna read.
Jackie, are you, tell where you're from.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I live in Alabama.
Yeah.
I live in Alabama. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I graduated from Crenshaw High School. My mom sacrificed a lot for me to attend Tuskegee University, where I graduated in 1992. And I was as a social worker. I'm currently a therapeutic life coach and a motivational speaker. But more than that, I'm obedient to whatever my spirit allows me to do. So I just show up where I'm supposed to show up.
That's right.
So.
All right.
I'm a little nervous. I heard someone spoke the first night I was off the plane, fresh off the plane, probably 2 hours, and went to hear Thurman speak, but we kind of were a little bit behind, but we came into space, and when I came in, this young lady in the front, she spoke, this young lady right here in the front, yes, and I'm like, she's here, it's sitting in the front, I don't know. I want to do my stuff. I'm gonna do my stuff. I hope.
Do your stuff.
I'm gonna do my stuff. I'm gonna do my thing.
Your stuff is
good. Diamond. My 4-year-old self was pressed against the door. I was listening to my cousins Calvin and Bruce talk about things I'm sure I wasn't supposed to hear. Being 4 made me too young for just about everything said in any room and in any place where people were taller than me. So I became a cat. I would sneak around like Sassy, the neighbor's all-black creepy cat that always appeared out of nowhere without making not even one sound. You would only realize it that she was you would only realize it was there if it decided to meow or walk by and brush your leg or something. This is why I did not like them, because they were too sneaky, but they were the best tiptoers I had ever seen, and I needed to know how to tiptoe. Anyway, I was 4 when it started. 4 is when I start to remember. The truth is, I really don't remember it all. But who can remember everything? I don't know whether it was winter or fall, and that was okay, because turns out you really could only tell sometimes. When my mama was teaching me where I lived, she would say, "You live in sunny Los Angeles, California." Once I heard my mama say that California only had one season. She said everything seemed to be all be the same except for when it rained. And even then, you never really knew, because rain was rain, and it came when it wanted to. I'll read this poem. Also, this is a healing journey. So I had to enter this poem because this is a healing journey. Writing this book and being a part of this collective was a part of my healing journey. Mother Pacific is the name. Mother Pacific washed my feet and didn't charge me. She carried my cares far off into her deepness without question or hesitation. Paying no mind to where I'd been, she just washed my feet free of charge. Soothing them from the outside in, rolling back, taking care to do it again and again without question as to where my sunfire orange painted toes had roamed. She just loved me. She supported me, embraced the intricate details of the unspoken pain residing in my bones, hearing my soul's desire to communicate the secrets of my tired feet. All the while, without words, she spoke uninventoried wisdom of life to my soul, while reading my future from the soles of my feet. She massaged the tender, unspoken experiences, hiding subdermal without judgment. Then she took care to carry the libations I gifted her from the deep wells in my eyes, carrying them from deep down to the vault, carrying them deep down to her vault containing many tears offered up long before mine. But she made room for me. She considered me. In fact, I could hear her weep with me, sharing the weight of the familiar grief with me from being taken for granted by this world. Mother Pacific wasn't too busy to see me because she was expecting me. She seemed to miss me in a way that I had never been missed. She saw the beauty of my soul wrapped in hard life lessons and sins, but made no mention of the unkept garden in my zen. She just washed my feet again and again and again and didn't charge me.
Wow.
Thank you all
Thank
for being here.
I'd like Thurman to, there's one person who was part of the book who wasn't able to come, Bill Summers, and I'm going to ask Thurman to just bring him in the room.
Yeah, Bill Summers. Many of you know Bill Summers, either consciously or unconsciously, but he's an astounding culture bearer. Back when I was a young man, he had a band called Bill Summers and Summers Heat. They were on Soul Train, killing it with Oaklanders. Larry Batiste was in the band. Wasn't Clay Tobin in the band too? Scott Roberts, I think, was in the band. Who else was in the band, Dre?
Lori Ham,
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. You can look it up on YouTube. They're killing it. I forget the name of the track. My mind is. Anyway, I first heard about Bill Summers way back in about the early '70s when I was working at Greyhound, actually. And I used to party with some people that were connected to him, but I never met him. So through Dre back there, let me introduce Dre Johnson. That's Lester Chambers' son back there. He used to have a deal with Warner Brothers. He was in a band called the Freaky Executives that were really popular down around here. Not many people can remember that, but yeah, I remember them too. Anyway, so that's how I met Bill, probably back in about 2019 or 20, something like that. And he has a book called Skin to Skin. It's the story of his life, and it describes his transformation from an R&B musician, because here's the deal. He was on the road with New Birth. Some of y'all remember New Birth. Well, somebody in New Birth stole all his horns. Bill Summers was a horn player at first. He played soprano and tenor and like that. And so something had been bubbling in him, drawing him toward the Yoruba culture, where the bata drum, from Nigeria through Cuba to these shores, and he studied, Louisiana. He studied the bata drum, and through the Afro-Cuban connection, you have to get your hands consecrated by a priest to play that authoritatively. So anyway, when we met, he had this large biography, talking about all these musical experiences. He played with Alice Coltrane, McCoy Tyner, Herbie Hancock. The Headhunter LP was the biggest jazz, the best-selling jazz album at that time when it was released in 1973. And Bill was the one making those exotic African sounds at the beginning of yeah, that's Bill's number. And he was gonna be here. He's got a thing in here about the study of baton drum for all you would-be percussionists out there. And he was gonna be here today, but you know, he lives in New Orleans now, even though he used to live in Oakland. And the New Orleans Jazz Festival is going on right now. He's playing in 3 bands. So he canceled this event at the last minute. We really appreciate his contribution. Let me also say that when I first met him, I edited his book, Skin to Skin, and it got accepted for publication at University of Mississippi Press. But they want us to edit it one more time, one more again. And it's like, Bill said, man, he don't want to be edited any further.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to do it anyway. Anyway, we miss the fact that he's not here today. We appreciate you guys especially. I think that's all I can say.
That's a wonderful thing as well. But I'm going to say this book is really, there's 2 things I want to say about it. First of all, Ishmael Reed writes the, and I'm going to ask you to speak to that. He writes the foreword to the book. And he says something like, writers like those in this anthology present a Black practice that's absent from a school curriculum, emphasizing assimilation. Now, yeah, hold that thought for a second, and there really is something special about this. That it feels like, frankly, for someone like me, who watched my mother and her generation say, I don't care if you're going to publish me or not, I'm going to publish myself. Right. So there's a thing about that. Yeah. But talk about, just for a minute, that statement that Ishmael is making in terms of what shows up in this book. I should have sent these questions around.
I'm going to do my best.
All right.
I'm probably going to dance around it. First, let me tell you this. When David Rages and I were in a group called the Nairobi Poets 50 years ago, I can't remember how, but we met your mother. I didn't even know you. I didn't meet you till like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And Sarah Webster Fabio, Black Art's mother that she is, took me and David and Joe McNair into her home and lectured us on the responsibilities of the Black artist responsibility. The thing that stood out to me, she said, in your own personal creative space, you got to surround yourself with the things you love, you know, and that's you come to my old junkie man cave, you know, you understand what I'm talking about. So it was full circle meeting Cheryl Fabio through the late great Jim Moore, who died this past December 18th. He died being Sugar Pie DeSanto's manager, but back in the early 60s, he was Big Mama Thornton's manager. So I was so sad the other day when Big Mama got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just three months past Jim's passing. Now, the great, inimitable Ishmael Reed, if y'all had time, I would read his poem, I'm a Cowboy in the Boat of Ra right now, because that really speaks to me. But, what's the question?
So Ishmael he's making a distinction about the voices in this book that are very, for me, I mean, he does it through school curriculum, but what he's really saying is that this is a different voice than maybe the voices of Black writers that are published or that we'll find in other places. And I'm asking you, since I think most people haven't read it, what is it that he's talking about right there? And if you can't answer it, I can't.
You know, I focus on the fact that he talks about the Harlem Renaissance writers and the Umbro Writers Workshops and all those great black writers of the last 50 years and compared the Scribes to that, and I was like, well, that's damn preposterous. We ain't that good, you know. That was my reaction, you know.
But see, so let me say what, go on, Ricky, you say.
I felt that right away when you asked me to join, that whatever I contributed wouldn't go through that filtration
Yes.
process of Eurocentric
Yes,
editor
yes.
and the authority. Authority is a big word there because it's always you're contributing to someone else that has authority over not just what you're saying, but who you are. And so to realize that we're a part of a different tradition, a Black Fire tradition that knows no bounds.
Yeah.
And the only real bounds is the structure. How can we get this voice out? And so this moves things along to help other people whose voice can't get out on its own terms, in its own authentic terms. And that's what Oakland has always been able to do. And so there's a lot that we can do this. If other things aren't happening, we can do this.
I know that term collective is really getting popular again, despite the best efforts of the powers that be to stop it in its tracks. Collectively we can do a lot. I mean, it's in our nature of our ego to want to do it alone, so we can stand out, be the best one here, man. What are you talking about? Kind of thing. But no, we need to come together in whatever it is that we do as individuals, find like-minded people to help that vision grow into something big. Because all this little small potato stuff, you know, the rich are getting richer and we getting blacker, and you know.
Okay. I kind of know the end of that sentence. Alan, when you did this,
Yes.
what are we looking at?
Oh, well,
Here.
I don't know, what was it, upside down? Oh, no, I got it. Yeah, so, I thought of our group as bringing a message.
Say it again.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like divine beings or spirits bringing a message.
Oh, bringing a message.
Bringing a message.
Okay, I did.
You know, bringing unheard voices, bringing some ideas about healing each other, you know, that each one of us is marching along with this truth. And this is a style I do a lot of times with some of my Caribbean paintings, because of the influences I've been away in the Caribbean traveling, and then I spent time in Haiti doing a clean water project, and so I've had a chance to get exposed to some of the, you know, just like the sound of a clave that came from Africa into the Caribbean and became a backbeat for many dances and musical expression. You know, I still hear us with a clave, two simple sticks, but it can make great sound. Because we all have to wake up. We all have to wake up. We are sitting idle in a way, and we got to unfreeze ourselves because we're all vital. Each one of us has something. You know, we're not just dewdrops on a leaf. We got something to do. All of us together. And amazing what we can do together. Just by honoring and loving unconditionally, you know. I remember times when I had got to, I'm not gonna go on, but I went in my field of occupation of telecommunications and information systems and all this high-tech stuff. I was on the leading edge of developing a lot of things. And I reached this high echelon. And I would travel to Asia putting networks together and coming back here. But I had a fall. And I had contracted PTSD during the Vietnam era, where my skull was crushed. I lost the sight of my left eye, and I couldn't see out my right eye, really. Loss of hearing. I was taken down to nothing, down to zero. And then this divine presence brought me back up. When I lost my corporate position, I was escorted outside and they took my ID from a building I helped put up. And I said, I couldn't even talk. But I'm not going to go into all my story, but I'm just saying, going up and down, when you lose everything, when you become homeless. When I used to be on the street and watch people walk by, and you see how they would strain not to say hello with their eyes. It's like it caused them pain to look at us or people on the street. So I'm glad to have had that experience when I didn't have nobody. I would call. When I finally got a place to stay, I got a place and I got a phone, and my only company was time. I would call 767-121, you know, get time, just to hear a human voice. You know, I spent 12 weeks in a mental hospital. So what I'm saying is, it's good to go down to the bottom and then allow the divine power lift us up. Then it lets me know that, hey, I done had everything taken away from me already. I done been hurt already. It's just been preparation, because we can help each other with our pain and our healing. And I'm going to shut up right now. Somebody say something.
So, David,
Yes.
I have to say this. So you start off, you read a love poem, you tell this beautiful story that I think captures everybody's feeling as Harry moved on. And then you submit a story about Crossbone Billy. Right.
Yeah.
So I challenge everybody to get the book, to read this story, because I'm reading through it, and this I have never seen David not represent himself as this gentle, warm-hearted spirit. And then there's Crossbone Willie. So you have to say something to me and the rest of these people about Crossbone Willie and that story.
Well, when I decided I might try to make a story out of it, I wondered, well, where did this come from? You know, I really could not remember, and it's as far as I can tell, it's a true story. And I was like 4 years old at the time, you know, and I'm telling the story. But actually, what I remember is that actually seeing, you know, the interaction between the adults, the planning, the whole bit. I remember seeing all that, you know, Crossbone Willie. And for people who don't know, I guess I can go ahead and tell you a little bit what it's about.
Don't spoil it.
Yeah, but just a little, okay. The Crossbone Willie is a person who I guess it's just been in and out of, he was in and out of trouble all his life. He was hardcore, and he stretch his limits, you know, and living in Arkansas in 1953, you know, things were very much divided, very separated, and he had been in a lot of trouble, in and out of prison. He had murdered, he's done a lot of things, you know. But when I looked at all this, I'm thinking, well, you know, maybe I need to find something good in there also about him. So this is the group here working with the Scribes has helped me tremendously, because I decided, well, you know, I need to create a line that shows some positives about him, because, you know, I'll give you an example. I've been, I taught school for about 7 years in East Palo Alto and in Oregon, and I was a child protective social worker for 30 years with San Mateo County. And I could see, you know, how important it is that you've got to stay on the positive side. You've got to always highlight the good things about people, the things that they do that are good. You know, even if I'm not saying you accept the bad things, but you have to keep reminding people that they have a duty to be positive, to create, to be good, you know, and especially when it comes to your family, your offspring, you know, your relatives, you know, that you sometimes you're going to be maybe the only person that someone can count on. But anyway, getting back to Crossbone Willie, he was, you know, he was pretty bad, and the one lady that he was harassing, I guess he knew enough that she didn't have a man in the house, so he could come around and do, you know, treat her any kind of way and do things because of that. So she learned, you know, they got together, the ladies got together and decided.
Stop.
Oh, I'm
Stop there.
I'm sorry.
We do want you to stop there, David, because you can't even imagine where it goes.
Let's give it up for Crossbone Willie.
There is some women's ingenuity in there, though. Let me just say that.
Crafty.
A little bit of craftiness, right? Thank you, David. Thanks for letting us know.
If I can say just one thing.
You can.
It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with just the group as a whole and
Yes.
being a part of that and trying to write poetry. I realized I'm sorry. Right ahead. Okay. That it was important that I highlight women, mothers, and I'm working on some poems now that describe mothers and women as superheroes and the reasons why they are superheroes, you know, and I'm thinking, I say, you know, when I think back on my earliest days, you know, that the person who was there to rescue me, to take care of me and everything, that was my grandmother and my mother, you know. Now, you know, I'm not putting any value on what may have happened between the male, where he was at or whatever, but I survived because of the efforts of my grandmother and my mother. And the things that I saw them do, it looked like it was well, to me, it was superhero stuff, you know. You know, anybody can get up in the morning and crawl up under a house, you know, and with some a torch and get rid of the roaches so you could cook breakfast, you know. And this was like during the winter. And I said, well, you know, that was super, you know.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of other things they did. So I'm highlighting those things because I think we really need to respect that and understand if it wasn't for them, where would I be, you know? And when I see people who may be having trouble or issues or whatever, if they didn't have the right type of role models in their life,
Yeah.
You know, that you can expect these things to happen, you know, and that's the thing we need to understand first is, you know, how do we present as role models and how do we get people involved with each other in that, you know, line so that we can make a difference with our children and people coming up.
Can I?
Thank
Okay, I'm gonna do, you guys, I could hog this, but I'm gonna ask a couple more questions and then I'll open it up to you to ask them questions. So you start getting yours ready. I wanna ask Jackie because Jackie came in while I was still in the group and I found your experience to be really interesting. So I just want to ask you, being inside of this collective, you being in Tuskegee, what is it that it did? Because I could tell you were already a writer, but something was happening that I think shifted your attitude about your writing. I don't know. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then I want to ask Ricky a question.
Well, I can use the mic, but I don't necessarily need it. But do I need to talk into it?
Maybe it's for that.
Okay. Yes, so I travel in a few circles because I don't go nowhere where I can't be.
Okay.
So when I'm invited to come, I was telling my cousin, I love saying that, I was telling my cousin that that I had a friend who is she is a author and they produce several books. She's a part of a writing collective. She does not look like me, and or you, and I really value the fact that she had her chops in writing and that she was an author now, a published author, like several, you know. And so I had not heard. She has my book, she called, you know, and we are like, she called me her BFF, but anyhow. So, and I hadn't heard anything, but what it did was kind of solidify. I'm going forward and then I'll go back.
Okay.
It solidified that I'm not in the space. I got enough.
Yeah.
Of what was around me. I needed something that was on the outside. And again, when you are ready for the next step, that opportunity will appear. And yes, and so I hadn't heard anything from her, but that doesn't make me any less of a writer.
Yeah.
But I needed to be in a space where I could, in an incubator. And the wisdom and the stories, and Thurman calls me the baby of the bunch. Now I just turned 55, and I'm like, okay, I'll take it, but I'll take it, but I would sit during the Zoom sometimes. I'm like, now wait a minute, who was that? And I'd write down certain things when they speak about certain things. I needed that. I needed to be validated by the wisdom that was swirling around in that Zoom. One thing is not for one thing. So I was on a healing journey too. So my writing was growing, but I needed to be in a space where it could get what it needed, the oxygen, the plant food. I needed all of it. And so I was in a place. I just didn't know which way to move. Now living in Alabama. I'm just an amazing artist there. But I wasn't supposed to be in those spaces. They didn't welcome me in. They looked like me, but they didn't, you know, when I was inquiring to be in spaces, that wasn't the pull. But then the other folks were pulling me in, but trying to shun me. But you can't shut down what,
Right.
no.
That didn't work.
Yeah, you can't do that. So when this amazing group came along, oh my God, you all allowed me to heal someplace, I mean, to really, you know, like you really just did that in my writing. My characters would wake me up. Tell them this. And no matter where I would be, Joyce and I were talking about this, that no matter where I would be, and I pop up on Zoom, I'm in New York, I don't care where I was, in the middle or whatever, I have to be in this Zoom meeting, New York, Los Angeles, Detroit, that wherever I was, there was nothing that was gonna make me miss this serum. Yeah, I needed something.
Thank you.
I needed something. Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope that answered it.
It did. It did. And thank you, because I could feel it, but because I didn't know you, I couldn't put my finger on it. Thank you. Ricky?
Lastly, this group was an absolute great example of there is nothing that we go through that is just for us. And so what they shared, how they helped me by literally talking about and share writing, and then they literally, you know, give you some, you know, but just the conversation about the things that they've gone through and the stories and stuff, that is an elixir. And this was a perfect example and a perfect space to be in, to know that there is nothing that you go through that is just for you. And so when you can sit in the space of wisdom, you need to get there. Care how old you are, you need to get there, sit down, and hold on. Take what you need, leave the rest, so somebody else can pick that up and keep it moving. The Scribes of Heru, yeah. This is that.
Thank you. Thank you. So Ricky, I know that we see that you've been moved, and it was certainly moving to read this piece you've included. I want you, there was something about, so, you know, I'm not a music aficionado. I didn't know, but I could tell this guy was special.
You're a music
Okay,
movie
but-
maker.
Well, but that didn't mean, that means you research. But anyway, the point is, he was special, and yet there's something I want to ask you about you lifting up this very personal story about this guy, which is not the kind of story we usually hear about really well-known musicians, where, you know, usually you're in the, like, you know, and I know you contribute to Unsung, but like, that's the way that we frame famous musicians, right? This was really different. And so can you just talk a little bit about that? Do you even know what I'm saying?
Well, I just, you know, sometimes when you're dealing with, when we're dealing with our art, there's just so much more depth than the traditional format of information and journalism and history. It just doesn't go there. And so I grew up like a lot of us. I'm sort of in the same generation. And, you know, we listened to KDIA radio or the other jazz stations around and went to the shows, and we knew these people, and we got to know them a little bit, and they would move on, or we would move on and lose track of our record collection, and things would happen. And we would sort of know there's something special about them, but we would move on. Our lives, we into something else, we're going through it. And I just felt like some of these people had a power that there was really no apparatus intact to acknowledge, to recognize it and connect everything, and connect the wave, you know, because I teach the music history, and most people unconsciously know that all these music forms are happening, but they don't know that it's all one wave of us and what we've done and what we're doing. And it's all connected, and it's a deep river. And then when I encounter people that, you know, sort of that bring all that out, I'm just like, I thought Bernie Worrell, when I first met him, I felt like I was in the presence of a holy man, you know, one of those folks with the tribal wisdom that everybody would go to, and he had it, and he was that generous with it, and he was just, it was like this. How can we acknowledge? How is acknowledgement of this possible? And I struggle with that. I don't know if you guys know, it happens every week. Another giant in our music is retired. You know, Frankie Beverly retired. Okay, it's in the press, it's gone. Wait a minute, that brother has given us so much. You know, the Barcades came to town, and Larry Dawson had just retired. That brother's been singing for 50 years. Well, where's the, how's the, you know, we're not even talking about Stevie Wonder and some of these people. There's no apparatus to recognize the scope of what they brought, of our gifts that they're giving back to us.
That's
Like that. There's just no way it can be done. You build, we make connections, we collaborate, we get these stories to, not just out, but get them to resonate, so more and more people get some, like you said, take some, leave some. James Brown said that in 1974 on the Payback album. Take some, leave some. And so it felt like that, and I always felt Bernie Worrell was sort of the top of that mountain of those people that had that gift that was as down to earth as possible, and like I said, the man piloted the mothership, so he had taken us everywhere, and he was as open to me as any of the artists I had dealt with, or just characters in the community I had dealt with, and so I couldn't let go of that moment. He had passed in 2016, and he said, you know, hey, what do you got working on? I said, well, I'm still thinking about letting go of Bert. I hadn't done it. I hadn't brought any closure to it. And so I had put all those ideas together and write about it, and the group he was with and all that. It had to happen, and it took a while, but it was worth it. And all of a sudden, it's in a place where it belongs.
You humanized him. You know, one more, and then I'm turning it over to you guys. Joyce, you do this beautiful story about quilting. I don't know, all of us are moved by quilting because either we slept under them, or we love to see them, or whatever. You not only do a beautiful story, but you picked a pattern and put the pattern in the book. I love that. So how did you make the decision, but also, how did you decide which pattern you were going to put in that book?
Okay.
Can we pass it?
That's the torch.
Well, actually, the story was about the pattern. It was the one of my mom's favorite patterns, her go-to pattern for making quilts when someone needed one, when she had to provide one for a family member or a family raffle or something. It's called the card trick pattern.
Say it again.
The card trick pattern.
Okay.
And when my mom passed, my aunt, who was her quilter in crime, partner in crime, wanted to know if I had my mother's pattern, the card trick pattern. And I was like, no, I know what you're talking about, but I don't have it. So me being the helpful person I am, I try to be, I went online, I found the pattern, I found several versions of the pattern, I wrote it all up, I made a sample, and I sent it to my aunt. And when I did it, as I was doing it, this is a very complicated pattern. I don't know if she's ever gonna make this quilt, because make one square takes 100 little pieces. So I sent it to her, she thanked me. She never told me whether or not she made the pattern. But I was helping my dad clean up my mom's quilting room. And I found a card trick pattern piece in the making. So I could see how she put it together. It was so much simpler. So much simpler. It cut a lot of steps out, the pieces were bigger, everything. And it made sense that she could actually make one of these quickly. And so that let me know that that's what my aunt meant. She said, do you have Clara's card trick pattern? So that's what the story is about. And I really wanted to share the pattern with people because I'm always trying to encourage people to do stuff. Make a quilt, daughter. Here's the pattern. So that's why I put it in. And everything that I write, I try to put in the ingredients, or if I'm talking about like a treatment that my grandparents may have used, I want to tell you how to make it. I think it's important that those are part of our stories. You know, we don't remember a time when we just didn't go to the store and buy a blanket, you know. So that's kind of my mission.
Hold it for 1 second, hold that, and tell you, frankly, I don't know if you guys agree, my experience is, if it hadn't been for your organizing skills, your persistence, your timeliness, your insistence, this wouldn't have happened. So, well, you know, okay, and I'm not surprised you made that face, but I'm sure of the fact of it because I witnessed it, right? Is that how you move through life all the time? I mean, talk about that just a little bit.
Well, my dad says, when I told him I accomplished something one time, he said, "Of course you did. You complete what you do." So I'm not bragging about myself, but I'm just saying, when I do interviews and people ask me about your goals or your skills and your strengths, I always say, well, people say about me that I am a good organizer, that I, give me a task, and if I have the time, it might get done. And Thurman threw those tasks. He kept throwing them, so I kept trying. So.
You did a great job.
Joyce, I think you should tell the audience your father's first name.
Why?
Because it emphasizes what we do so well.
Okay. Well, my dad's name is hyphen, and it is spelled like the punctuation mark, hyphen. We don't know exactly where it came from, but that is his name.
Wow.
So we're together.
All right. So we're going to do a little interactiveness. I don't want to hog it all. You got a question out here? Are you using this mic? Is somebody using this for recording? No? Okay, then you can just yell out your question.
Yes, I have a question for Joyce. I know, Joyce, that in basket weaving in South Carolina, there's black codes in the basket weaving.
Wow.
Different messages that the weavers used to weave into the basket that only explain a certain story to the people who could identify the story. It was done to keep the narration from the white man or from the master, and they not only did it in baskets, they did it in quilts too. So I thought I would ask you, Joyce, did your family ever do black coding in your quilting? As far as giving messages or giving historical different things about the family or whatever?
That's a good question. No, I don't think so, because this was happening in Oklahoma at a different time where, I don't know if you know about Oklahoma, but we had some very unique communities. We had all black communities where people just owned property. They took care of themselves. So I don't know that there was any coding needed, except for love. This is a quilt I'm giving my child who's, getting married, and I'm gonna put some love in it. But
you do know that those baskets, that research traces them back to the baskets that were being made in Sierra Leone. And so not only is there coding, but there's patterns that make a direct link to Sierra Leone. I've always been fascinated by that.
I just want to say something about Rich. You talked about the musician that played the Funkadelic.
Yeah.
There's a great documentation on the Funkadelics on Tubi. It's called The Untold Story of the Funkadelics. and it explains a whole lot of the history of Funkadelics and how George Clinton took it from just a band coming out of Ohio somewhere and made it an international phenomenon. But it's also a lot of reality there in that documentary, talk about the treachery that went down.
Any other questions or statements? Yes.
Yeah, Joyce, you know, this, it made me think about the coding and things, but, was there anything in the book about, the rodeos? Because visiting Oklahoma and then looking back, you know, we were actually invited to be judges, black rodeos. I mean, filled with black people, young black children on horses, mastering. You know, just, that was, you know, just being in those black communities, all black. So I understand what you're saying, but is there anything? Not in this book.
Right.
Perhaps in next.
Well, definitely, because my family comes from an area called Boley, Oklahoma.
I was in Bowling.
The Boley Rodeo is a big thing, so.
Yeah.
It's
Oh my
definitely
God.
good.
I got a t-shirt.
We have black rodeos here too.
Yeah, you see them, but it's not like the ones.
No, well, no, but we should
We
recognize and honor, and it's young folks doing it.
Yeah.
But most of us don't realize that there's amply, I guess.
Yes, in West Oakland. I mean, and they have these parades, and I try to get my neighborhoods out with the children and say, the parade is coming, you know. There's folks on horses, brothers looking all, you know. Beautiful, yeah. But I just want to ask that. And thank you, all of you, just the jewels, the bits, the jewels. Because, you know, I could go on.
Let's see if there's any other questions? Wait, okay, wait, oh, wait.
Hi, how's it going? My name's Kevin.
Loud, please.
So after, at the beginning of the talk, you mentioned how not everybody here was published by like a major publication. And I was kind of wondering what your experience was like as black artists, or what sort of obstacles you kind of ran into trying to get your work published, and how you kind of got into the mindset or figured out how you would progress past getting into those major publications. How you arrived at that decision.
So in the group, I know these two have gone through that trek. Have you guys, yeah, okay. Well, why don't we start here and go down and answer his question?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I, try as I might, I've never been able to secure a book deal. That's been my quest for about 20 years, trying to get a book deal from some publisher who saw some measure of merit in what I wrote. And I got all kind of, you know, whatever. So, but I did start making a dent writing about music through different music publications, Blues Blast magazine, Cadence Jazz magazine, and just a brief synopsis of how this evolved where it was doable. Many of you know the fusion drummer, jazz drummer Billy Cobham, I'm sure. Somehow, his publicist, excuse me, called me and asked me would I be interested in interviewing him for Cadence magazine. I did that. Nice cat, nice interview. I met the author of his book, white guy by the name of Brian Gruber. He's not a music journalist, he writes about the human condition. But even though he's had book deals, he also self-publishes, and he turned me on to a book designer, the guy that designed the interior, and Alan drew the art, but it still has to be designed,
for the cover. So we met this guy, his name is Alexandru Oprescu, that Brian Gruber introduced. Oprescu, that's his name, Oprescu.
Doesn't sound very promising.
Nice guy. I remember Joyce was leery. Joyce was leery of this guy because I was so high on him. Because he did this book for me, the Lester Chambers book. So I knew that he knew what he was doing. And he designed the interior and the exterior for $500. That's all it cost us.
Wow.
That's all it cost us
Wow.
to publish this was the $500 that we paid him. Everything else. So it can
So
be
you
done.
can do it, it can do it too.
It's hard navigating, you know, and then there's the thing about Amazon, because, you know, Jeff Bezos is so rich, a lot of people don't want to support the Amazon platform. And there's other self-publishing platforms that are pro and con, but, you know.
It'll end up in places you just wouldn't believe, Walmart and stuff, just, you know, you don't know how it got there, but it gets there for people, yeah.
Ricky, what was your experience?
I'll make it quick as I can. My first book was on funk, and when I was writing it in the 90s, there was all a revival of the music with the samples and all the videos, and it was a cool thing. So I took the manuscript and sent it out to every publisher out there, and because I figured, I'm trying to remember the language I was using, because I knew it would have this sort of crossover pop notion potential. And lo and behold, some youngster fresh out of Brown University working in the bin at St. Martin's Press, the slush pile, found it and thought it was cool. And I said, do whatever, just go ahead. And they went ahead with it. And I knew it would be, they would not even be paying attention. But it got in on the trendiness. And I didn't bring it, but if you find the Ricky Vincent book on funk, it has this kind of disco thing looking on the back, and it's pink, and it has all this language about rainbow afros and platform shoes, and it was like these outsiders' idea of what funk was. And I was like, do whatever you're gonna do, because I knew the real fight would be the content of it. And if that's the crossover, I mean, you know, George Clinton looks kind of wild, or at least he did, you know, so there's a thing. It kind of distracts people, but you can get into it. But I had to fight them over. I had a whole chapter on the Black Power movement and how Black Power and funk are interrelated, because the rhythm and the attitude are what make this thing happen. And they didn't want that chapter in there, so I had to fight them over a whole Black Power chapter and the whole Jimi Hendrix section I put in there. They like, what does Jimi Hendrix have to do with the funk? I said, well, you need to read the book. So, but that was on the inside. On the outside, I'm like, do whatever you got to do and let that go. And so that was the thing. I had to let that go. I couldn't hire a brother like you to put the thing together. And so that was it. The second book I do want to mention, though, because I went through, I was trying to get an academic publisher, and I bounced around, and well, this is my second book, and I'm not trying to sell myself, but it was about two things. It's about the Black Panther Party, and it's about the music history, soul music, and how soul music woke up around the same time. And it's two histories. It's a history of the Black Panthers, but it's a history of music. And so, you know, the marketing people are like, well, which is it? Do we put it in the Black Power section? Do we put it over with the other music books? And it was stupid, but it was two books in one. I couldn't get them to understand it. And finally, I had gone through so many changes. I won't even talk about it. I went to KPFA Radio, where I work, during fundraiser, where they had books, stacked boxes of books they give away, and I knew that the radical publishers would be there. And it turns out the woman on the mixing board was Noelle Hanrahan, and she works
Mumia.
for prison radio, and she works with Mumia. And I asked her, I said, what would it take to give Mumia Abu Jamal a copy of this book? And she said, well, here's how you do it so it looks generic, so they don't try to censor it or whatever. And it got to him. And I wrote a little letter, said, if you like this, maybe you can forward it to your literary agent. And his literary agent was this woman who had worked with Paul Robeson back in the day.
Wow.
She was no joke. And you know, if you know Mumia Abu Jamal, he's always publishing things
Right.
down there in the heaviest solitary confinement. He's still writing books.
Yeah.
And you know, I was opportunistic. Well, he's got nothing else to do. He might read this. And he did. And he liked it. And he forwarded that, and within 2 weeks, I was at Chicago Review Press. And that thing got published. But that's what I mean about rolling the dice. What was it? Lottery. You win a lottery. It can go years, and it has little to do with the quality of the product.
I also think that that's what Ishmael meant when he made that statement, because in our world, you can know something like the music and the politics are married.
Yes.
Right? But so that is our understanding of the world that actually we're living. Someone else is going to say, well, no, it has to be one or the other. And it actually doesn't. And not only does it not, but the fact that you can keep things separate like that means that we never understand, we never get that
The power of it all.
the power of this experience we're all living. So, you know, I think that's what Ishmael was talking about. Tell us, you were going to tell Alan your experience with being published.
Oh yeah. I published. I've been writing since I was a kid because I think that's the way I dealt with a lot of issues as a kid. Because I sometimes felt like I had nowhere to go, but I could write something. And but maybe 20 years ago, I published on blurb.com. And I think I published 6 books out there. One, A Letter to Little Bobby, and it's my reflections of the time when, because Little Bobby and I was along with Khalid, we were in the same junior high school together, Woodrow Wilson Junior High School. And and we had went through certain things in the movement, and I had just saw him like 2 days before he was murdered.
Now, which little Bobby was that?
Little Bobby Hubbard?
Bobby Hubbard.
Yeah.
I know, I just wanted to tell the people.
Oh, I'm sorry. In my mind. But anyway, and so I wrote a piece, and it's like we're writing letters, and I'm writing letters to little Bobby. I'm saying, little Bobby, you know, you should see what's going on out here, you know. And then he writes a letter about, hey, what's going on in here, because I've been in the penitentiary all this time, incarcerated. So, but then I've done a lot of this. There's a segment in here, the piece that I put in here is a segment of a book I spent about 5 years writing. I haven't published it. It's called Honey Boy, and it talks about this character, this young kid, who goes down from Baltimore to Georgia, 1930s. You got the Scottsboro Boys thing happening. You got things. He goes up to Chicago and get cut into a new type of life. He's a young teenager, and they got the numbers. His auntie is running numbers, and they got entertainers and things. And he gets on the TOBA, you know, Theater's Booking Agency, the Black Booking Agency, and he travels. And he even comes to Oakland, and he goes to the Lincoln Theater and appears. And he hangs down at Infirmary Park. And because my father he came here in the 20s, so he hung out with a lot of people in West Oakland, bakers. We got a Baker's Funeral Home and all that stuff. They did all kind of things, you know. But I tell that story and talk about the Colored Musician Union that used to meet at the California Hotel. So I actually try to collect a lot of history I researched along the way. And then I did a book on this book called Yesterday Sunset, Tomorrow Sunrise. Did that on blurb.com, and it's the predecessor to this family.
Yeah.
They're the roots of this family, and they come out of slavery, and they come out of Georgia, and it goes up through the Spanish-American War and World War I, and it stops after World War I. This picks up and goes on to World War II, and it just talks about the flavors of blackness, the things that are happening in the current news, and just trying to capture that culture. So I did those on blurb.com, but this has been a great experience here, the way this was produced. It empowers people, that we have a voice. Even in my artwork, I've developed a way to, it's called I Can Feel Color. It's a technique I use to teach blind and visually impaired how to paint using 3D method of medium. And I do that back there, but it gives them a voice that I can go to art museum, but I can feel what I made. I can tell my story, and you can feel it.
So, I just want to say, you all have been very generous with these things that you've shared with us. And I wanted to leave a little bit of time for people to be able to mingle, to talk with you individually, to buy some books. Like nobody should get back on a plane with all these books. I think there's food back there. So before I close down, let me just check, is there any burning question that needs to be answered?
How much is the book?
15.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
Is there any way I can get a business card of all these great stories? I'm sitting here enthralled by everybody.
Well, I think.
This is amazing. All this power here. I'm just mystified,
So bring out your pencils, your little pieces of paper. If they don't have a card, we can still write our connections. And let's spend the next 30 minutes. I understand we might need to vacate at 4. Oh, no, it's not a hard. Okay. So let's spend some time just being.
And we'll sign books if you purchase.
Do you guys want to sit here for a while?
We
and
can.
deal with books? I think it's best. All right, let's do that.
Huh?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you can make, Eric want to make an announcement.
Eric,
Just a minute.
Huh? Anyone you can pick.
Okay. So, hello, can we get...
Oh, wait, hold on, you guys.
Can we get everybody's attention real quick? So Alan has this artwork here. Please check it out. One of the pieces we will be raffling. We have raffle tickets, so we'll be selling raffle tickets, and we'll call off the winner for one of Alan's pieces. So please stick around for that.
All right. Thank you.